When a book has been taken to heart by the public, it's become part of public consciousness. Sometimes, particularly when people are too stupid to actually have bothered reading the book, they rely on what they think it says rather than what it actually does say. And this is clearly the case with Elon Musk and George Orwell. I have no idea whether Elon Musk is too stupid to be relying on hearsay rather than actually having read the book. I would love to know if he's actually read 1984 or Animal Farm or any of the other books by George Orwell. But his appropriation of Orwell's work, particularly through a retweet featuring Orwell's image in the caption, "Boy, did I call it or what?" highlights a troubling trend. The distortion of Orwell's legacy to fit modern agendum. A modern agendum. It's Musk, this figure known for his influence in technology and society, often uses Orwell to critique what he sees as a modern overreach by society or by a government institution. However, this appropriation, as noted by Professor Jean Seaton, the director of the Orwell Foundation, grossly oversimplifies and misrepresents Orwell's complex ideas. George Orwell, Eric Arthur Blair, was a writer deeply concerned with the dangers of totalitarianism. And his works in 1984 and Animal Farm, of course, are searing critiques of totalitarianism, of totalitarian regimes, particularly the Soviet Union under Stalin. And Orwell's works are not mere diatribes against big government in a general sense, but specific warnings against governments that seek to control and manipulate truth to maintain power. In 1984, the concept of doublethink, the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously, is a tool used by the state to control the population. The famous line, "Freedom is the freedom to say 2 plus 2 makes 4, encapsulates Orwell's concern with objective truth. In a totalitarian regime, the state controls reality, dictating even the most basic truths, and this is far removed from the idea that Orwell would champion uninhibited free speech, especially if that speech could lead to social harm, such as the riots seen in the UK. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that one must resist the rise to a totalitarian scheme, where reality is blurred by authority. Musk's use of Orwell as a symbol against which he perceives the overreach by modern governments and the norms of society are have got out of control. This distorts the original intention of Orwell's work. Orwell was not an advocate for unrestrained speech without consequence. Rather, he understood the power of words and the responsibility that comes with them. His work is a nuanced exploration of the dangers of losing control over truth and the importance of protecting democratic institutions from authoritarianism, whether that is right or left, it doesn't matter. And Professor Seaton correctly identifies this as ripping out of context Orwell's work. By simplifying Orwell's critique to a general anti-government stance, Musk and others like him ignore the specific and political context that Orwell is responding to. Orwell has an agendum. It's very clear. He doesn't have agenda. It's not plural. It's one goal. He's a democratic socialist who is deeply suspicious of the power of the extreme far right or far left. That is one goal, seeing both as potential threats to the suppression of individual freedom and truth. His work is about the vigilance against totalitarianism in all its forms, not a blanket endorsement of unrestricted free speech. To say whatever you like and be damned. That is not what he's talking about. He's also very careful about his use of language, to be simple, to be clear, rather than to confuse. And this bastardization of Orwell's work is not is not just a worry for scholars. It has real-world consequences. The recent riots in England, Northern Ireland, they're a stark reminder of the dangers of inflamed rhetoric and the spread of misinformation. And Orwell's warnings about the manipulation of truth are as relevant today as when he wrote them. So if there's a message from Orwell about the riots, it's about Elon Musk, and it's about Farage, and it's about Tate, and it's about Tommy Robinson, and it's about the distortion of truth. Orwell is not giving a free-for-all here. And Orwell needs to be understood in context. Using Orwell's works to justify or encourage actions that lead to unrest is a fundamental misreading of his work. It would be a fundamental misreading of the work, incidentally, of Anthony Burgess as well. And maybe at some point I need to look at the role of Burgess in this scenario. In Animal Farm, Orwell famously wrote, "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others," and this line is often quoted to highlight the hypocrisy of authoritarian regimes. But it also serves as a reminder of how easily ideals can be corrupted, and Musk's selective quoting and interpretation of Orwell is just such a similar corruption, twisting the writer's warnings into a tool for justifying his own worldview and his own myopic vision. Elon Musk's use of George Orwell's work as a critique of modern society demonstrates a worrying trend to simplify and distort complex ideas for personal or political gain. Orwell's work is deeply rooted in the specific historical context of mid-20th century totalitarianism and should be understood as a nuanced critique of the manipulation of truth and the dangers of authoritarianism and the dangers of deceit. By reducing Orwell's message to a simplistic anti-government stance, Musk and others not only misrepresent George Orwell, but they also risk encouraging the very divisions that Orwell sought to warn against. The antidote, as Professor Seaton suggests, is simple. Read Orwell in full and understand the depth of his critique before invoking his name. And if you don't open 1984 and you start blabbering about George Orwell, then clearly you are a fool. My assumption is there's quite a lot of fools.